The top stories tonight in Y News. Manila Water and Maynilad customers can expect lower bills starting March 21.
Prices of basic goods in supermarkets are expected to increase to up to 6% in the coming days.
The number of overseas Filipino workers who contracted the coronavirus disease in Hong Kong has climbed to 221.
Ukrainian forces had retreated from the Kherson city, making it the first major city in Ukraine to fall under Russian control since the invasion began.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Thursday, March 3, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am Herlene Delgado.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news. Good news, customers of Maynilad and Manila Water will see a lower water bill rate beginning March 21, 2022. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
The 12% value-added tax will no longer be included in the water bill after Congress approved the franchise of water concessionaires Maynilad and Manila Water. According to Metropolitan Waterworks and Sewerage System or MWSS, the 12% VAT will be replaced with 2% national franchise tax and local franchise tax to be implemented by the local government.
The reason for the removal of VAT and the imposition of franchise taxes is because of the passage of RA 11600 and RA 11601 that gave legislative franchises to the two concessionaires. Since they are now required to have a franchise, they are now subject to franchise taxes instead of VAT.
For Maynilad customers consuming 10 cubic meters a month, the rate will drop from 130 pesos to around 118 pesos. Customers consuming 20 cubic meters will have a monthly rate of 445 pesos instead of the previous 448 pesos, while households consuming 30 cubic meters per month will only have to pay 908 pesos, much lower compared to the 997 pesos per month. Manila Water customers consuming 10 cubic meters per month, meanwhile, will only have to pay 138 pesos instead of the 151 pesos. The monthly rate of customers consuming 20 cubic meters will have a water bill amounting to 305 pesos, which is lower than 337 pesos. Manila Water households consuming 30 cubic meters per month will have a water bill rate of 620 pesos. The MWSS clarifies the agency does not have the authority to dictate local government units with regards to the local franchise tax they will impose. However, the agency assures LGUs cannot go beyond the designated cap for taxes.
If they want to increase taxes, it's like Congress. If Congress wants to increase taxes, we have no choice. Diba? I don't think naman I don't have the power to prevent them from increasing their taxes. But I think the local government code provides for a cap. That I think that will govern that one, and they cannot go beyond that.
Meanwhile, the MWSS continues to monitor the situation in Angat Dam, especially during warmer temperatures. The agency expressed concerns over the possible drop of water levels in Angat Dam. However, it assures there will be no water crisis in the country and it will continue to review solutions to possible problems in the country's water supply. Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Heads up to all consumers, prices of basic goods sold in supermarkets are expected to increase to up to 6% in the coming days. Janice Inhente will tell us why.
Several consumers have felt the increase in prices of basic commodities as the month of March enters. According to Stephen Kua, president of the Philippine Amalgamated Supermarket Association, some manufacturers have increased their prices due to ongoing oil price hike. With this, the group expects a 6% increase in the price of essential goods in the coming days.
Merong nag-10%, merong mga imported items more than 10%, pero hindi naman essential yun, di ba? Yung iba, essential items from around 2 to 6%. Yan ang range, 2 to 6% yung mga basic and priority items na binibili natin pang araw-araw. There are around 15,000 items inside the supermarket na iba-ibang kategorya at iba-ibang presyo. Ibig sabihin, may mga non-essentials na mas malaki ang tinaas at mayroong mga essentials na hindi masyadong malaki ang tinaas.
Kua added prices of dairy products like milk, yogurt, and canned goods are likely to increase. Next week, the Department of Trade and Industry will have a National Price Council meeting with the manufacturers and supermarkets to discuss the requested price hike in basic commodities. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines Western Mindanao Command denied reports that the members of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front or MILF were target of the recent military operations in Lanao del Sur. Leia Ilagan explains why.
Western Mindanao Command spokesperson Major Andrew Linao insists that the target of their operation in Maging, Lanao del Sur was the ISIS-inspired group Dawla Islamiyah Maute headed by Abu Zakaria. Linao's statement came after Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, or BARM Chief Minister Ahud Ibrahim said the firefight in the area on Tuesday, March 1 involved forces of the MILF and the military.
Mayroong small community na MLF malapit doon sa area, but those MLF communities are not the targets po. Those communities are also helping us in our efforts. The real target really is the Dawla Islamiyah Maudi group and the Dawla Islamiyah Hassan group, which came from the Maguindanao supporting doon sa efforts ng ISIS-inspired armed group dito sa Lanao area.
7 terrorists and a soldier were killed, while 5 other government troops were wounded during the clash. Major Linao cleared that there were no civilians nor members of the MILF killed or wounded on the operation.
Tinatawagan din po namin yung mga ground units natin to confirm or deny doon sa mga reports na may mga civilian casualties from the ground to their spot and progress report. Wala pong naka-indicate doon na may mga involved civilian casualties. Though may mga natakot na mga civilian communities, may mga nag-evacuate, may mga IDPs tayo. But the MDRRM o Maging Lanao del Sur are doing its best in support and coordination with our PNP and AFP to cater these IDPs na nag-evacuate the area.
The military recovered 46 high-powered firearms from the terrorists, including caliber 50 and caliber 30 machine guns, M16 and M14 rifles, AK-47, grenade launcher, ammunitions, landmine, and 5 kilos of shabu. The Western Mindanao Command appealed to the community to immediately report to the authorities if there are suspicious individuals in their area. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, Russian forces have taken over the southern city of Kherson, making it the first major Ukrainian city to fall. Iya De Vera will give us the details live. Yes, Iya, go ahead.
William, on Wednesday night at local time, Russian troops were in the streets of the coastal city Kherson and had forced their way into the city council building. Kherson's mayor Igor Kolykhayev said in a statement that there are no armed forces in the city and that there are only civilians and residents, urging Russian soldiers not to shoot at them. Meanwhile, Russian Defense Ministry spokesman said that Kherson's civilian structure, essential facilities, and transport were operating like normal, and there were no shortages of foods or essential goods. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky did not comment on whether Russia has taken control of any cities, including Kherson, stating that if the Russians did go somewhere, it will only be temporary and that they will be driven out. Mr. Zelensky stated that the war has taken a toll on the morale of Russian soldiers, calling them confused children who have been used as Russia's death toll reached around 9,000. Peace talks between Ukraine and Russia are expected to resume on Thursday, with the Ukrainian delegation currently in transit to Belarus. William?
Yes, Iya, what are the casualties looking like for both Ukraine and Russia?
Well, William, so far the numbers given by both Ukraine and Russia cannot be independently identified, but as of March 1, the UN Human Rights Office has confirmed 227 civilian deaths and 525 injuries during the conflict, although due to reporting delays, they cautioned that this would be much higher. Ukraine has not reported its own military losses, but claims that Russia's death toll is around 9,000 and hundreds are taken as prisoners so far, while Russia's defense ministry said that since the start of the invasion, 498 Russian soldiers were killed and 1,597 were wounded. Back to you, William.
Yes, thank you, Iya de Vera, reporting live.
The World Health Organization expressed concern over reports of attacks on health facilities and even on health workers. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus emphasized that the attacks on the health sector is a violation of the international humanitarian law. Tedros added that the WHO is on the ground in Ukraine, working with its partners to respond and assess the situation, as well as deliver essential medical supplies from its hub in Dubai. He also called for the rapid establishment of a humanitarian corridor to send critical health supplies to those in need.
We are also deeply concerned about reports of attacks on health facilities and health workers. We have received several unconfirmed reports of attacks on hospitals and health infrastructure, and one confirmed incident last week in which a hospital came under heavy weapons attack, killing 4 people and injuring 10, including 6 health workers. We are currently in the process of verifying several other incidents.
For those watching our live streaming on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook.
There are more reasons behind the stories. Catch Y News in its new time slot at 8:30 in the evening, starting March 4, 2022. Because we need to know, we will always ask why.
Presidential hopeful and Vice President Leni Robredo signs a covenant with a fisherfolk community in Oriental Mindoro, a commitment to help them in their livelihood should she win the presidency. Harleen Delgado reports.
The Robredo ticket went to Oriental Mindoro today as part of their campaign trail. There, Robredo visited the St. Augustine Parish in the town of Pinamalayan and met with religious leaders. She also visited the Samahan ng Calapeño Mangingisda or SACAG, a fishing community in Barangay Wawa in Calapan City. There, Robredo signed a covenant with the leaders of the community, committing to help them boost their livelihood should she win as president. She also plans to create a separate department for the fisheries sector and a presidential assistance for fisheries once elected. The Sakag community was one of the beneficiaries of the Sustainable Livelihood Program of the Office of the Vice President last year.
Bumaba po dito yung team, in-assess, tiningnan kung talagang mapapabuti kayo dahil sa proyekto at ano naman po, nirekomenda siya. At masaya ako na sa inyo mismo naririnig ko na malaking tulong ito para sa mga mangingisda dito.
The Lenny Kiko tandem, along with their senatorial slate, also went to people's rallies organized by their supporter volunteers. Meanwhile, Robredo's running mate, Senator Francis Pangilinan, believes the government should now start tapping alternative sources of energy like renewable energy amid the increasing oil prices.
Strategically, pagka nag-invest sa renewable, mas mumura ang kuryente kumpara sa ngayon. Kaya dapat ngayon pa lang, nakakalamang na tayo, mauna na tayo, hanapan na natin ng solusyon, and renewable energy ang mahalaga dyan.
The Robredo ticket is scheduled to visit Cavite, a vote-rich province, tomorrow. Jordan Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The unit team of presidential candidate Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. and vice presidential candidate Mayor Sara Duterte this time shared their plans with the Batangueños should they win in the coming May elections. Mel Maribohok reports.
The tandem of Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. and Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte visited the province of Batangas today. Speaking before their supporters in Balayan, Batangas, Marcos proceeded to laying down his platform for governance, saying more needs to be done with the help of various agencies. If he wins the presidency, Marcos expressed determination to bring down the electricity rates and pushes for quality education.
Aayusin po natin, pagagandahin po natin ang ating edukasyon, pag-aaralan natin ng mabuti. Kailangan pag-aralan natin ng mabuti kung paano ibaba ang presyo ng kuryente para hindi nahirapan ang taong bayan.
He also mentioned the need to improve the agriculture sector, healthcare system, tourism and digital infrastructure and pursue the Build program of the Duterte administration. His running mate Mayor Duterte will push for job generation.
Ang kailangan po ng ating bansa, ibalik yung mga trabaho na nawala dahil sa pandemya.
This is the third time that Marcos is returning to Batangas, one of the vote-rich province in the country. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Mayor Isko Moreno Dumagoso denies getting an advice from a foreign consultant for his presidential candidacy. Meanwhile, presidential candidate may also allow the medical use of marijuana, but at a later time. Asher Kadapan Jr. explains why live. Yes, Asher, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, Will. The only ones who may understand the needs of Filipinos are the Filipinos themselves. Mayor Isko Moreno Dumagoso explains this as he denies tapping any foreign consultant in the presidential race for the 2022 elections. This was raised after presidential candidate Senator Manny Pacquiao says one of his contenders is seeking advice from a foreigner.
We cannot afford that one. Paano naman maintindihan ng foreigner yung kultura ng Pilipino? Paano maintindihan ng foreigner? Okay, for example, ito na lang. Kanina, nakita mo yung ating mga katutubo. Hindi naman lang maintindihan yun. We, as Filipinos, tayo bilang mga Pilipino, ang tunay na makakaintindi ng kapwa natin.
Meanwhile, Dumagoso is in favor of using marijuana for medical purposes, but the Manila City Mayor emphasizes that it may not be done in the time being as it may be abused. The Aksyon Demokratiko standard bearer further explains that what needs to be prioritized in the meantime are the challenges of the people, particularly their livelihoods and businesses.
It will be subject to abuse. We have to fix our system first as a government and our mindset as a citizen. But anything, someday, somehow, that science will prove it. As long as makikinabang yung kalusugan ng isang tao, anumang uri ng gamot na pwedeng makatulong sa kanya at mabuhay siya. And so be it.
Today, Mayor Isko Moreno Doc Leon Camp conducted political campaigns in the provinces of Quirino and Isabela. The party is scheduled to visit Cagayan tomorrow. Will?
Yes, thank you, Asher Kadapan Jr., reporting live from Quezon City.
Several groups expressed opposition to the partnership between the Commission on Elections and online news website Rappler on fighting disinformation in relation to the May 9 polls. Dante Amento tells us why.
Labor groups Bangon Bagong Manileño Movement Against Repressive, Corrupt, and Oligarchic System and IGPAW urged the Commission on Elections to cancel its Memorandum of Agreement forged with the online media platform Rappler last February 24, 2022. They also condemned the poll body's move for allegedly putting their data at stake by sharing these to Rappler, which is a foreign-funded entity. The group expressed support to the recent call by Solicitor General Jose Calida to void the MOA. They are also worried over the integrity of the upcoming polls.
Kaya kami nandito ngayon ay upang kundinahin, no, yung ginawa ni Jimenez kung saan yung tinatawag na MOA, no, ay hindi maglilingkod ng magandang resulta sa eleksyon. Bagkos ito ay magkakaroon pa ng isang pangyayari kung saan lalong titindi, no, batay sa aming mga pag-aaral, titindi lalo ang dayaan.
The group warned they will not stop conducting protests, especially if there will be a threat of irregularity during the May 9, 2022 elections.
Kung sakasakaling magkaroon at nakikita namin na talaga nandiyan nakahanda ang dayaan, no, hindi nyo mapipigilan ang dagsa ng sambayan ng Pilipino para kundinahin ang pandaraya.
Meanwhile, in a statement released by Rappler, it called Soljan Calida's claim as fraught with falsehoods, innuendos, and hallucinations. It added the MOA with Comelec is simply to help the poll body to disseminate truthful information to voters and ensure transparent elections. Rappler has been allegedly partners with the poll body since the 2013 national and local elections. Comelec spokesperson Director James Jimenez, on the other hand, disclosed their partnership with Rappler is not to give them favor over the information dissemination. Though there is a current issue of foreign ownership with Rappler, it is still pending before the Court of Appeals and has not yet reached finality.
If I'm not mistaken, the issue on foreign ownership has not yet been fully resolved. If I'm not mistaken, it's pending, right, before the Court of Appeals. The Comelec is not the proper venue to make that proper determination.
Jimenez adds they have been in partners with other media entities for the information dissemination during elections. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The number of overseas Filipino workers who contracted the coronavirus disease in Hong Kong continues to increase. The Philippine government, meanwhile, assures assistance to OFWs in need. JP Nunez has the story.
The Philippine Overseas Labor Office in Hong Kong reported that the number of overseas Filipino workers infected with COVID-19 reaches 221 amid the Omicron variant surge. Polo Hong Kong Labor Attaché Melchor Dizon said that of the figure, some have already recovered while others are either in hospitals, their employers, government quarantine facilities, non-government organization facilities, or hotels. To prevent the spread, the Hong Kong government started requiring vaccine cards to those who will enter establishments.
Nag-umpisa na nung February 24, meron na dito mga certain establishment na kailangan na yung vaccine pass. So, kapag ikaw ay hindi bakunado, hindi ka makakapasok like sa restaurant, sa mga parlor, sa mga gym, sa mga ganong mga establishment.
A 3-week mass testing will also be conducted among its permanent and temporary residents, including OFWs. Meanwhile, Labor Attaché Melchor Dizon also reported that 3 OFWs who were terminated by employers after contracting COVID-19 were given reconsideration. Hong Kong government will sanction those employers who will dismiss COVID-hit Pinoy workers. Among the penalties includes fine, blacklisting, and violation of labor code.
Nagbigay na rin sila ng warning sa mga employer na ito ay labag sa employment ordinance, yung pag-terminate ng worker kung sila ay nasa sa COVID at sila ay mananagot at pag napatunayan na terminate nila yung kanilang worker, dahil sa COVID, magbabayad sila ng fine na 100,000 Hong Kong dollars. That is equivalent siguro sa mga 650,000 pesos, aside from doon sa kanila mga posibilidad na dapat na ibigay sa ating kababayan.
As of now, there are still no formal complaints from OFWs against employers terminating them from work due to COVID contraction. However, the Polo in Hong Kong assures they will assist OFWs in need.
Kung meron kaming makikita na terminate dahil sa COVID, i-assist namin kasi nung kami nakipag-coordinate doon sa aming counterparts sa Hong Kong Labor, ang pwede naming i-file, i-assist namin pagpa-file ng complaints doon sa Labor Tribunal Division at saka sa Equal Opportunities Commission, yung kanilang complaints na against doon sa employer.
JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Philippines recorded 989 new cases of novel coronavirus disease or COVID-19, pushing the nationwide case count to 3,664,905. This was the second straight day that the Philippines recorded less than 1,000 cases. Meanwhile, the number of active COVID-19 cases nationwide stood at 50,458. Of these, 45,510 have mild symptoms, 2,773 are moderate, 1,415 are in severe condition, 463 are asymptomatic, and 297 are in critical condition. There were also 1,349 new recoveries and 34 deaths. These figures pushed the recovery count and death toll to 3,557,909 and 56,538 respectively. Meanwhile, the overall global COVID-19 caseload has topped 440,526,456, while the deaths have surged to 5,974,544, according to the Johns Hopkins University. The United States is still the worst hit country with the world's highest number of cases and deaths at 79,143,885 and 79,100,000. India follows with 42,945,160 cases and 514,388 deaths. In terms of deaths, Brazil comes second with 650,254 fatalities.
And for the news abroad, India welcomed back their students in the state of Maharashtra yesterday after closing down schools nationwide for 2 years in efforts to slow down COVID-19 transmissions. Paul Gatchalian will give us the details live. Yes, Paul, go ahead.
Ariel, with the surges of COVID-19 cases slowing down in India, schools in the Maharashtra state reopened to students on Wednesday after it was announced by the state minister Aditya Thackeray last week. Students will attend and participate in all regular activities as they commence again in all schools located in Maharashtra's largest city, Mumbai. The decision to reopen schools was based on the mild severity of the Omicron variant seen on both vaccinated and unvaccinated adults and children who became infected, based on the observation of infectious disease professor Uma Chandra Mouli Nachu. Currently in India, children under the age of 15 have not yet been vaccinated. However, schools will be encouraged to hold vaccination camps for those above the age of 15 to ensure students' protection. Meanwhile, 28 million of India's teenage population, alongside 765 million out of 940 million adults, have been fully vaccinated. Pre-COVID lifestyle seems to be returning in India as congestion in the capital, New Delhi, returned. Mariel?
Thank you, Paul Gatchalian, for that live report. U.S. President Joe Biden announced a closer to normal pandemic plan that will allow schools and businesses to open while driving down serious illnesses and deaths from the virus. Therese Longbowen reports the details live. Yes, Therese, please go ahead.
Good evening, Marielle. U.S. President Joe Biden released a new COVID-19 preparedness plan and declared that it's time for America to stop letting the coronavirus dictate how Americans live. White House COVID-19 coordinator Jeff Zients announced in a press briefing the 4 key goals of the 90-page National COVID-19 Preparedness Plan. This includes protect against and treat COVID, preparation for any new variants, prevent economic and school shutdowns, and vaccinate the world and save lives. One of the highlights of the 4 key goals is a new test-to-treat plan that will provide free antiviral pills at pharmacies to people who test positive for the virus. Zients said Biden's plan will help the Americans move forward safely after 2 years of pandemic disruptions.
The President's National COVID-19 Preparedness Plan that we're releasing today will help us move forward safely, sustaining and building on the progress we've made over the last 13 months.
Meanwhile, a new assessment from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that 43% of Americans, or 140 million, have now had COVID from late December to late January. Marielle?
Thank you, Charis Longbowen, reporting live. After being closed to the world and even to the rest of its country for 697 days, emotional reunions were at Perth Airport as Australia's hardest border reopens. Marvin Finn will give us the details live. Yes, Marvin, good evening.
Good evening, Marielle. Premier Mark McGowan lived to his promise of opening the state's gates overnight, despite the state moving into its first full-scale COVID wave of the pandemic, with daily case numbers averaging 1,000 a day. Inside the first 2 days of the reopening, about 6,000 interstate arrivals are expected, and by Friday, another 2,000 visitors will be brought in by 10 international flights from Dubai, Singapore, Doha, Kuala Lumpur, and Auckland. While there is no longer a hotel quarantine requirement for those already immunized against COVID-19, measures such as mask wearing, home gatherings limited to 10 people, and 50% capacity for venues are still in place. Those coming from interstate must be triple vaccinated with a completed G2G border pass and must take a rapid test on entry. Marielle, here is what some of our kababayans had to say.
Ang masasabi ko lang ngayong bukas na ang hard border ng WA ay hindi pa natag ang aking kalooban. Para sa iba, masaya sila dahil nga muli nila makikita ang kanilang mga mahal sa buhay, ang kanilang mga kamag-anak at ang kanilang mga kaibigan. Pero para sa akin, kinakabahan ako. Kasi nag-aalala nga ako dahil nga baka mas lalo pang dumami ang mga COVID positive cases dito.
Para sa isang magulang na tulad ko na may anak sa Melbourne, welcome news ito. Naalisin na yung hard borders.
Real epidemiologist Catherine Bennett says hard borders were now redundant as states move beyond COVID-0. Moreover, Professor Bennett said Premier Mark McGowan would likely achieve the soft landing out of the pandemic he had been aiming for, taking South Australia and Tasmania as examples. According to Mr. McGowan, the border has come at a great cost to many people, but he could not think much of what he would have done differently as he reflected on the past 2 years. Marielle?
Marvy, with the border now reopened, which could mean a surge in COVID-19 cases, how is Western Australia's health system preparing for this likely event?
Marielle, as of present, hospitalizations remain low with 22 in hospital and none in ICU, though hospitals in WA are currently on red alert. And as a result, many Category 2 and 3 elective surgeries have been called off from mid-March, while a special COVID-19 ward has been set up in Perth. Back to you, Marielle.
Thank you, Marvidal Finn, reporting live from Australia. Scientists expect a 2,700 kilogram space junk that has been tumbling haphazardly through space a decade ago to strike the moon on Friday, carving out a crater hole that is predicted to be 10 to 20 meters. The leftover rocket will bombard into the far side of the moon, away from telescope observations, resulting in weeks or even months to confirm the crash through satellite images. The space junk was originally mistaken as the SpaceX Falcon rocket upper stage from 2015, but later on identified as the Chinese rocket that was sent to the moon back in 2014. Scientists could not confirm the origin of the space junk, and Chinese officials stated that the rocket in question, the Chinese upper stage, has burned up during its enter to the Earth's atmosphere. U.S. Space Command indicated from its database that the Chinese upper stage from 2014 lunar mission never deorbited. Further findings recently identified the Chinese rocket segment from the light reflected off its paint-through telescope. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Maria Latoza reporting live from Perth, Australia. Good evening.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word, giving glory to God. From the book of Proverbs, chapter 25, verse 9, it says, "Debate thy cause with thy neighbor himself, and discover not a secret to another." And those are the reasons behind the news, March 3, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am Herlene Delgado.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.